The apocalypse, the annihilation of an entire people or their self-destruction, and the end of a civilization is something that rarely comes to mind as we continue our daily lives today. We are so certain it will not happen to us, yet some civilizations have already experienced it. Empires, as a form of governance, have shaped our lives for thousands of years. The Roman Empire, the Neo-Assyrian Empire, they all ruled lands and peoples. But none were the first. 24 centuries before Christ, Mesopotamia consisted of different city-states, each with its own king and protective deity. Two main ethnic groups lived there, the southern Sumerians and the northern Semitic Akkadians. In 2334 BCE, the Akkadians conquered Sumerian lands, unified the city-states, and created a completely new organization, an empire. For the first time in history, a multicultural and multilingual group of city-states was united under one banner. This restructuring marked a transformation in governance and produced a political organization never seen before. The Akkadian Empire was the world's first empire, stretching from the Persian Gulf in the east to the Mediterranean in the west, and as far north as modern-day Turkey. The empire appeared suddenly, and Akkadian quickly became the lingua franca of the entire region. Under Akkadian rule, life in Mesopotamia flourished. Using their power and geographic reach, they ushered in an age of abundance. Trade routes extended vast distances to India and the Mediterranean, and goods of all kinds flowed into the empire. Pearls, ivory, elephants, hippopotamuses, even live monkeys. Everything imaginable poured in, making the empire richer and more magnificent. But only 140 years later, in 2193 BCE, the Akkadian Empire collapsed. The entire region was abandoned and fell into chaos. Over time, the very existence of the Akkadians was forgotten. So what destroyed the world's first empire? The Akkadian Empire remained unknown until a British archaeologist made an unrelated discovery. On the east bank of the Tigris River, Sir Austen Henry Layard uncovered something astonishing. The royal palace of Nineveh, a city mentioned in the Bible, and the capital of the later Assyrian Empire, which arose 1,000 years after the Akkadians vanished. But Layard's greatest discovery came in the final days of excavation. A room filled with clay tablets, all written in cuneiform, the ancient writing system of the Assyrians. Layard had discovered the remains of the greatest library of the ancient world, the Library of Ashurbanipal. What secrets could these tablets contain? For 19th-century archaeologists, these cuneiform texts promised unimaginable insights into the history of ancient Mesopotamia. The problem was that no one could read them. They were written in an undeciphered form of cuneiform. To unlock the secrets of the ancient Near East, the code of cuneiform needed to be cracked. For 15 years, the British scholar Sir Henry Rawlinson worked on translating it. Cuneiform was not a language, but a writing system, like the Latin alphabet used today for English, French, Spanish, and German. Cuneiform could represent many ancient languages. Rawlinson traveled to a region in modern-day Iran where he recognized an inscription written in cuneiform. He realized it contained 3 different languages, all written in cuneiform. One he identified as Old Persian. The other 2 remained mysterious, but he recognized the inscription, the Behistun inscription, and had already translated the Persian portion. If he could decipher the other 2 languages, he could use that knowledge to read the tablets in the Nineveh library and unlock the secrets of ancient Mesopotamia. He returned to the inscription. Assuming all 3 versions expressed the same message, the key lay within. Rawlinson deduced that the mysterious languages used too many symbols for each symbol to represent a single letter. Instead, The languages must be syllabic, each symbol representing a syllable. Using the known Persian text, he matched repeated patterns and deduced the meanings of symbols in the unknown languages. After 10 years, he succeeded. The tablets of Nineveh could now be read. What they revealed was astonishing. There were medical texts, astrological texts, and an enormous historical archive. Scribes had not only recorded the history of the Assyrians, but also that of the peoples who came before them. These tablets told the story of a forgotten empire, one described as the greatest of its time, ruling all Mesopotamia. They called themselves the Akkadians. Archaeologists were stunned. How had such a civilization vanished without trace? When did the Akkadians exist? Why did they disappear? What destroyed them? Rawlinson continued translating tablets for years, searching for clues. Then, around 1867, about a decade after he cracked Akkadian cuneiform, he came across a tablet containing the legend of Sargon, the first king of the Akkadian Empire. The early history of Akkad began to emerge. In 2334 BCE, Sargon became the ruler of Kish, a city-state in the Akkad region of Mesopotamia. Akkadian history was filled with violence and conflict from the beginning. Sargon waged continuous war, expanding his kingdom across Mesopotamia and subduing Sumerian and Akkadian city-states, establishing the world's first empire. To supply his new centralized state, Sargon imposed taxes on every city-state. Every citizen had to produce a fixed amount of grain and deliver it to administrative centers, essentially grain warehouses. Sargon needed vast quantities of grain, especially for something entirely new: the world's first standing army. Unlike earlier times, when temporary forces of farmers and shepherds were assembled for war, Sargon employed full-time professional soldiers, trained, equipped, and ready for battle. These soldiers required constant food supply. Under Sargon's grandson, Naram-Sin, the empire reached its peak around 2254 BCE. Naram-Sin poured resources into enormous construction projects: temples, cities, and monuments, many adorned with gold and copper statues. His realm stretched from the Persian Gulf to Elam in modern Iran, westward to the Mediterranean, and north to modern Turkey. He declared himself the ruler of the four corners of the world and even depicted himself wearing the horned helmet reserved for gods. He proclaimed himself a living deity. The Akkadian Empire had achieved something extraordinary. So why was it forgotten for millennia? What caused its sudden collapse? Among the tablets, archaeologists found a disturbing legend: the Curse of Akkad. It told how Naram-Sin attacked the holy city of Nippur and destroyed its temple. The gods cursed him for this sacrilege. According to the myth, they wished for the empire's destruction. Herbs overgrew the canal paths. Canals filled with silt. The once fertile land turned to dust. Rivers that once flowed with fresh water ran with mud. Because of Naram-Sin's arrogance, the gods destroyed the Akkadian Empire. Legends hint at disaster, but what actually happened? Archaeologists turned to chronology. One object from a donated antiquities collection stood out: a small, cuneiform-covered prism containing a copy of the Sumerian king list, written around 1800 BCE. It recorded kings, their cities, and lengths of reign. The Akkadian kings appeared in the list. If a reference point, a historically known date, could be identified, then the Akkadian timeline could be anchored. That reference point came from an astronomical clue in the Nineveh tablets: a solar eclipse recorded also by ancient Greeks, dated to June 15, 763 BCE. Using this as a fixed point, scholars aligned ancient calendars and established the timeline of the Akkadian Empire. Sargon's reign began in 2334 BCE. After 2193 BCE, the king list descended into chaos. Kings ruled only a year or two, turmoil reigned, and political instability is evident. But it did not explain why the empire collapsed. Archaeologists considered how the Akkadians survived in the harsh climate of the Middle East. The key lay in agriculture. Southern Mesopotamia relied on irrigation from the Tigris and Euphrates. The Akkadians knew that the survival of their empire depended on maintaining complex irrigation systems. But as the empire grew, it needed ever more food. Archaeologists found evidence that the Akkadians expanded into the Habur plains of modern northeastern Syria, where agriculture depended not on irrigation, but rain. Rain-fed farming was less stable, but the region's grain production became crucial for feeding the empire's army. However, it was vulnerable to attack. Archaeologists searched northern sites for evidence of collapse. At Tel Brak, a 7,000-year-old settlement, British archaeologist Max Mallowan found Akkadian remains, including a palace, granary, and fortress stamped with Naram-Sin's mark. But construction had suddenly halted. Buildings were unfinished, tools lay unused, entire sites were abandoned. Why would the Akkadians leave such a strategic region? The first hypothesis was invasion. But when soils were analyzed, signs of burning turned out not to be from fires. Instead, there was evidence of extreme rapid heating, something like a flash thermal event. And dust layers across the region suggested a massive airborne event. More Akkadian settlements revealed the same pattern: abrupt abandonment, unfinished buildings, deep layers of dust, and bizarre melted materials similar to naturally formed polymers found when lightning strikes sand. Could intense lightning storms have caused this destruction? Scientists proposed a theory. A massive atmospheric dust event, possibly volcanic, could have caused widespread static buildup and extreme lightning strikes. Such storms release immense amounts of energy, capable of destroying buildings in milliseconds. Yet this was not the only possibility. Geologists studying ocean sediment cores from the Gulf of Oman found massive increases in dust. Dolomite minerals, specifically from Mesopotamia, dating to around 2200 BCE. The increase lasted 300 years. A drought that long could easily destroy an empire. Other civilizations collapsed at the same time: Egypt's Old Kingdom, the Indus Valley Civilization, and others. A region-wide drought seemed likely. Why would such a long drought occur? One known global climate disruptor is El Niño. Scientists examined marine records off the coast of Peru, where El Niño leaves clear temperature signatures. These records showed major warming events between 2500 and 2000 BCE, exactly when the drought struck Mesopotamia. Archaeology confirmed it. Soil layers at Tel Leilan showed dead earth. No worms, no biological activity. Rain-fed farms had turned to dust. People left the region around 2200 BCE and did not return for 300 years. Without grain from the north, the empire could not feed its army. City-states rebelled. Mountain tribes such as the Gutians moved in as their own lands dried. The Akkadian state weakened internally, and the Gutians eventually overran the region. The empire fragmented into city-states. The first empire in world history had collapsed.